What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Red and Bold Show. We're excited and honored to talk with everybody today about your San Francisco 49ers. I'm your host, Marc Adams. You can find me at 49ers Camelot. I'm joined by my co-host, the great, the unmatched Anthony Robertson of 49ers Cutback. How's it going, Ant?
It's going good, and what an intro, unmatched. Yeah, I don't know about unmatched, but I appreciate the love, Mark. Mark, I gotta say, I've been loving what you've been doing over the last week. I've seen the shorts, I've seen the recorded video about Brock Purdy. Good content. So if you guys love good content, you need to be following Mark at 49ers Camelot. And so it'll be a good opportunity to get you some updated information. Mark does a great job, and I love his perspective. So go check that out. It's a lot of fun, and why not support Mark? He's such a great guy, and he does good work. Whether it's on 49ers Camelot or 49ers Web Zone, Mark's the go-to for information. I really appreciate the work that he does.
I appreciate it. Most of my information comes from people like Matt Mayoko, so I want to always give them credit. Lou's in the chat. What's up, Lou? Joel's in the chat. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure others are going to be jumping in here soon. So let's get started with, you mentioned it, Brock Purdy has a new contract. I love this. I think that it's a great contract for Purdy. I think that it's fair for the 49ers. You know, when you look at an annual that runs around, what was it, 53 million, I think it was. I don't think that that's too bad. Yeah, we'd love to have him for 43 million, but that's not going to be fair to him, especially when you talk about quarterback markets. What did you think? What was your first thought? I did see plenty of 49ers fans who were like, oh, this is bad, but most were really excited. Now, I did also see Seahawks fans and Rams fans who were like, yes, this is great, which, some of them I had to respond to, why do you think this is great? Y'all have a hard time beating them. But, it's all in fun. So what did you think about it? Did you like how it was framed? Any thoughts, good or bad, about the contract?
I thought it was good for both sides. I thought that this is one of those contracts. This is what you always want with negotiations, is you want to be able to come away from it with both sides feeling really happy with the contract. And I think that's what happened. I think that there was a sweet spot here. And I do believe it was between 50 and 55 million was going to be the sweet spot for the 49ers. And there were a lot of people that kept teasing $60 million. There were people that were saying the 49ers didn't want to go above $45 million in annual salary. And ultimately, they kind of meet in the middle of that 60, that 45, and they hit right at $53 million, which I think is a very good number for Brock Purdy. And I think it's good for him because financial stability with the $181 million guaranteed for his future, but also for the 49ers, it still gives them some flexibility, especially as we move forward, and they're going to continue to build a roster around him. This contract is going to age extremely well for the 49ers. By next year, he's going to be out of the top 10 more than likely as far as average salary per season. And so when you look at things like that happen, you realize the 49ers are getting a very good deal. And Brock Purdy's doing a solid for himself and his family, but also for the team, because there's one thing we know about Brock. He's a competitor. He wants to win. And I think we're seeing that with this contract. I love the contract overall. I think it's a good structure for the 49ers. I think it was great for Brock Purdy. It's not very often you can say it's a win-win situation, but I think this one is a win-win situation.
Yeah, I thought it was great. For me, it was a lot of it had to do with get him done so he can be, spending most of the offseason with his teammates. I didn't want any kind of distractions, didn't want Ayuk type stuff or Deebo Samuel type stuff where there's hold-ins. I think we saw last year that stuff impacted the 49ers, and we saw the year before when Nick Bosa wasn't around during training camp, and he admitted that it affected his 2023 season. So you just can't play that game with your quarterback. I wish the 49ers wouldn't play that game. I'm glad they didn't with Kittle. I'm glad they didn't with Brock. Hopefully they get Fred Warner done soon. Just think that it's stupid to keep putting it off and putting it off. And I don't know if that's a Parag thing or what, but if it is, then Parag is getting worse at his job, in my opinion. And usually, I've been really positive most years at the work that Parag Marathe does, but I don't like the way that they have done contracts in recent years. Lou in the chat says happy with the contract. David Morazzo says, I feel like Brock could have held out for more. Yeah, probably. And the 49ers could have made it last longer to try and get less for him. A 49ers throwback. So we win in game 1, Seattle. Let's see. Lou said in about a year or two, Brock Purdy contract will be amazing. He's a humble guy. Love it. Strawberry Reacts says the timing is great. The front office is actually getting the last 3 contracts done in good time. Diamador, Lenore, Kittle, Purdy. If they get Warner done before training camp, then we're all good. Yeah. And then he said, new front office. Who dis? Yeah. I don't know. It's weird, some of the stuff that they do, but I'm glad at how they've done it so far this offseason. So we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think right after the draft, DJ Humphries was going to be signing with the 49ers, and then Matt Miyoko just a couple of days ago said not so fast. It sounds like he's not. What were your thoughts on that? Was he a player that you really were excited to see joining the 49ers, or are you like, he's nothing special?
Yeah, I was really excited, and it's an interesting situation because his agency is the one that made the big, the big move on social media saying, hey, congratulations to DJ. He's back. He's healthy. He's signing with the San Francisco 49ers. And then next thing you know, Matt Miyoko is saying, hey, this thing is not official. This thing hasn't happened. And now we don't know if it's even going to happen. The 49ers went with Andre Dillard, Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. They added a couple of offensive tackles. And at the time, I thought, wow, the 49ers went all in on adding offensive tackles with DJ Humphries and then the 2 that we just mentioned. I think that this was an interesting one because I think Humphries is the best of the 3 tackles we talked about. Him and Dillard were both first-round picks, but Humphries is the one that's played well in the NFL. He's had moments where he's been a Pro Bowl caliber player, and he's a consistent left tackle guy that, hey, if something happened to Trent Williams, DJ Humphries could get you pretty good play, at least as good or better than Jalen Moore was last year. And I think that's what ultimately you were looking to get. Andre Dillard's a little bit of a more interesting situation because he hasn't been consistent in his career. He hasn't proven that he could be that guy. And he kind of, struggled in Philadelphia. Then he went to Tennessee. He struggled mightily there. And then last year at Green Bay, he just didn't even have any opportunities to play. So I think he's a little bit more of a projection. I think that there's a lot of talent there. When you're talking about pure athleticism, he's got it. I mean, the guy can absolutely move. He ran a 4.9 coming out of the combine. He fits the system, and so you are getting some guys that have the ability to play in the system with Dillard and Petit-Ferrer, who was a 3rd-round pick, who's the same sort of thing. Hyper athletic, really good, talented player, but struggles when it comes to certain areas of his game. Can the 49ers get more out of him? Now, he's 26. Dillard's going to be 30 years old. A little bit difference there. I do wish they had Humphries, though. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if this means they've officially moved on. Now they got Dillard and Petit-Ferrer, but we'll see what happens. The 49ers, they almost had a deal. I don't know what scared him off. Was it him wanting to compete for a starting job? Was that what it was? Was it some sort of financial, thing that he wanted in the contract that they couldn't figure out? That I don't know. But something made DJ Humphries walk away from the 49ers. And it could be as simple as he's not ready to pass a physical yet. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But I was disappointed to hear that DJ Humphries is not going to sign with the 49ers, at least anytime soon.
Yeah, I heard Larry Krueger say that Dieter Kurtenbach said that DJ Humphries got parogged, as in Parag did something to the contract that he didn't like. But Larry, his thoughts were more that maybe Humphries thought that he was going to be the swing tackle, and then they brought in a couple of other veterans, and he wasn't happy about that, so he didn't sign. Who knows? Maybe you're onto something that he's just not ready to pass a physical. So Before we move on from offensive line, I want to get your thoughts on this question from Lou. He said, your thoughts on long-term project Nick Zakelj maybe being a swing tackle. You said Burford could be. Why not Nick Zakelj? His time is running out.
I don't think that Spencer Burford or Nick Zakelj are going to be tackle prospects at this point. I do think that Spencer Burford is more athletic when it comes to lateral quickness than Nick Zakelj, which makes him a little bit easier to move to the outside than Zakelj. That's one of the things that makes him a guard prospect. I think he's got a good anchor, and so he's athletic enough to play inside. I don't think he's athletic enough to play outside against some of the premier edge rushers in this league. You just look at the Rams, for instance. You put him against Jared Verse, and Jared Verse is going to eat his lunch because he's not athletically quick enough. But you move him inside, and he's going to do better against a guy like Braden Fisk because he's got a good anchor and he's able to move laterally good enough. Same with Dominic Pooney, same sort of thing. And so space is the enemy of these guys who are a little bit more slow-footed, moving laterally. And so getting him out on the edge can be a problem. So that's why Nick Zakelj won't go out there. But Lou's right. Time is running out for Nick Zakelj. It's running out for Spencer Burford as well. They're in a really big competition this year for left guard. Ben Bartch, Nick Zakelj, Spencer Burford. Somebody's got to step up and go seize this moment and make their spot. What does it take for Nick Zakelj to be a starting offensive lineman for the 49ers? Be a lot better when it comes to run blocking. His pass blocking was very good last year. His run blocking, not great. What does it take for Spencer Burford? Consistency. He's the most talented of the guys we talk about at left guard. He's just got to be good more than he's bad. And unfortunately for him, for every 2 plays that are good, he's got 1 that's not so great. And so it's consistency for him. And for Ben Bartch, it's just do what you do. Stay consistent. That's going to help you get on the field. So it's 3 interesting players. All of them have different strengths and weaknesses. And somebody's got to go take this position and just go snatch it. Go get that gold ring. And I don't know who it's going to be right now, but I think it's going to be a fun competition in camp.
I always defer to you, especially when it comes to offensive line, because you know that's so much better than I do. I do think that Spencer Burford is in play for swing tackle, but that doesn't mean he's going to win that job, especially with the 2 veterans that they brought in. So, then whatever happens to DJ Humphries, if they bring back DJ Humphries, then I would say Burford's going to be a guard. But if they don't, then I think he has a shot at least competing there. So we'll see. He was a tackle in college, right? Is that
he was right? A tackle at UTSA, and pretty good. I mean, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism. Those aren't the arguments. The question is, can he play out there at this level? Does he have enough lateral quickness? I talked about the speed. Dillard does have that. And the interesting part about the swing tackle, and this is something that befell upon Jalen Moore, if you are going to be a swing tackle for the 49ers, you're going to play all through training camp, all through the preseason at left tackle because Trent Williams isn't. So when that happens, you don't have an opportunity to start anywhere else. So if Spencer Burford gets put into that role in training camp, he will not be in contention for the left guard spot because that's why Jalen Moore never was. That's exactly what Chris Foerster talked about last year. So we'll see what they do early on. If Burford's out there, there's a chance he's not in the mix for left guard. And I think that would be interesting considering how high they were on him when they drafted him at a UTSA.
Yeah. I should have done this when we were talking about Brock Purdy. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. I don't think I've ever done this live. So if you don't see it, then yell at me and I will stop doing it. But can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is Warren Sharp at Sharp Football talking about Brock Purdy. When trailing, because I wanted to get your thoughts on this. When trailing in the final 7 minutes of any game, regular season or playoffs, Brock Purdy has 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 5 sacks taken, 1 fumble lost. So those are bad. His 9% interception rate is 3rd worst of 71 quarterbacks. His 15% sack plus interception rate is 2nd worst. His plus 0.01 EPA per drop back ranks 55th out of 71. So your thoughts on that? Does that scare you any? To me, some of those games were, we had that Green Bay playoff game where it was wet. He played terrible, But in the end, he came back and led the team down. Then you've got the NFC Championship game against the Lions when they were way down. He brought them back. And so to me, you even go that Cleveland game in 2023, wet ball. He's playing terrible. They're losing. And then at the end, he drives the team down, gets in field goal range. Jake Moody misses. To me, that's how I think more of him as a clutch quarterback who comes through when he needs to come through. But those numbers are pretty bad. I mean, when trailing in the final 7 minutes, no touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 5 sacks, 1 fumble lost. A lot can go into that. You've got offensive line play. One of those interceptions could have been off of a receiver's hands. Who knows? Do you look at that and go, I'm not worried about that at all? Or do you like, oh, that does look bad?
I wouldn't say I'm not worried about it at all, but I wouldn't say I'm hyper worried either. I think it's kind of like in the middle where I'm looking at it as a young player that's developing in the NFL. And this is something that happens with young players. Go back and watch early Steve Young, early Joe Montana, and they made these mistakes as well. And then eventually they figured it out. And mastery of the offense, figuring out what defenses try to do against you, you figuring out what your skill level is and what you can do with your arm and your abilities also play into it. As a player matures, they understand what they can get away with and what they can't. So I think that this has been a growing process for Brock Purdy. I don't think it's always been pretty, but I do know that in the biggest moments, and you brought up some of those big moments, Brock Purdy has left the field with the lead when it mattered. And you think about that Cleveland game, they came back. He put them in position with some good throws, and they got back into a situation where they could win with a field goal. You look at the Super Bowl, he went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes down the stretch, and yeah, they came up just short. But it wasn't his fault in the end. And so I think those are the things you look at, and you're like, you know what? This Brock Purdy, he's got something to him, and I think we've seen so many times where he's been able to step up that I feel like the more he gets comfortable within this offense, it's just going to get better and better. But if it doesn't, then yeah, this is an issue, right? Just the same with the weather issue and the problem with throwing the football. It's Brock Purdy that has to overcome these situations. So I think it's not something you dismiss, but it's not something I'm overly worried about right now either.
Yeah, because two things for me. You mentioned the Super Bowl. He left that game. He left the field twice. Once at the end of the fourth quarter, toward the end of the fourth quarter. Not at the end, but toward the end. And once in overtime. He left the field twice with the lead that he had just given them. And then that final drive, in overtime, if it wasn't for a missed assignment, maybe they win it right there and Mahomes never gets the ball. The other thing is that when you're trailing late in a game, sometimes your running game is no longer a factor. And so I think that when you have plenty of time, you get the ball and you have plenty of time, then you can play, run all your plays, use pass, use run. But there are times that that's you're one-dimensional because of the limited amount of time. And so I think that that's something to consider as well. Like what Strawberry Reacts wrote here in the chat. It's odd that they put his fourth quarter stats in the playoffs. He's only thrown 1 interception in the playoffs, and it was in the first half. Most of those, I think he meant stats, are regular season. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. Want to get into the schedule, but before we do, obviously when the schedule came out, they have the easiest schedule. Nothing like what they had last year. They have a positive rest differential instead of a negative 22 or whatever it was last year. I don't think they play anybody coming off a bye. If they do, maybe it's okay. So that's what I thought. So much, much better. But I wanted to get to the statement this past week from Colin Cowherd. Again, I'm going to try to share this screen. Hopefully everybody can hear it. If not, I will apologize ahead of time. But I want you to hear what Colin Cowherd said, because I think that this is really stupid and annoying. So let's take a listen.
I have been a skeptic on the last couple of drafts for the San Francisco 49ers. I have said this, they're getting old and expensive. I don't like their offensive line. I thought this year's draft was a lot of hit and miss with 11 picks, 4 or 5 I liked, 5 or 6 I didn't. But they have the easiest NFL schedule, I'm not joking, since the 2015 Atlanta Falcons. And it's based on 2 metrics. Number one is last year's results. So they're playing a lot of teams that were bad last year. And the second metric is a lot of teams that are projected to be lousy this year. So on 2 different metrics, they've got the easiest schedule. Now, I will say this. If you gave Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Matt Stafford, Josh Allen this schedule, it is 13 to 14 wins. This is an affront to competitive football. And I don't want to hear $55 million Brock Purdy. I don't want to hear any excuses, or I don't want to hear any pom-poms when he wins 10 games with this mess of a schedule. San Francisco, not only is this schedule littered with mediocrity, they don't face a single team off a bye. Okay. Outside of Matt Stafford twice and CJ Stroud once, they don't face what people view as an elite quarterback. In fact, it's rookie quarterbacks. It's quarterbacks without 20 total starts. So I'm done with the Brock Purdy excuses.
All right. So this was so annoying to me because first off, not long ago, he said that the 49ers were going to finish last in the NFC West. And now he's saying, if I don't want to hear any good things if they win 10 games with this cupcake of a schedule. I mean, we all know that Colin Cowherd's a Seahawks fan, so he hates the 49ers. And so, look, if I was in his position, I'd probably be taking shots at the Seahawks and the Rams and the Cowboys. And so, you know, maybe not if I was like a national person like him. But all of that aside, I just thought this was I found this so annoying. I know that the national media is taking shots at the 49ers. They're finished. They're done. There was the James Jones quote where he said that he thinks they'd be lucky to win 9 games. That stuff happens. I'm not concerned about it. But to me, it just seemed like Cowherd was kind of contradicting himself, you know, that they're not any good. And I don't want to hear any complaints. But if they win 10 games, I don't want to hear anything good about Brock Purdy because Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or whoever would win 13 or 14 games with this schedule. So what is it? Are they bad or are they still good but carrying Brock Purdy along? That's the thing that I found annoying, is that he just contradicted himself too much. Did you hear this already? And if so, what I say is Cynthia, but screw Colin Cowherd. Yeah. So what were your thoughts when you heard this?
Yeah, so I had heard parts of this. So, you know, listening to the whole thing right now, I think first off, Colin Cowherd, this is what happens when you don't do due diligence and aren't completely informed as a national media member. When you don't understand the 49ers schedule, and there's no excuse for him to not know which teams they were going to play before he ever made the statement that they were going to be bottom in the NFC West. What happened is he caught himself in a little bit of a situation that once the schedule came out, now he realizes they're going to win at least 10 games, and his take before was completely trash. And that's unfortunate, but that's what happens when you're not paying attention to teams all the time. And you've got to make sure you're educated. And I think that he just got a little out over his skis on this one. And so I always find it entertaining with the national media members because they don't look at the 49ers roster. They only look at it surface level. So they always talk about, you know, the guys that they lost. They talk about Drake Greenlaw. Well, Drake Greenlaw didn't play at all last year. He played like one half. You know, they talk about Charvarius Ward. He missed multiple games as well. Talanoa Hufanga, big loss for the 49ers. He barely played last season. Javon Hargrave, huge loss, barely played. So I think it's one of those things where you get people that don't pay attention to the team. And of course, we're different because that's what our focus is on the 49ers.
Sure.
But I'm not a huge fan of national media pundits. I don't listen to national media for the most part. No ESPN for me, no Fox, no none of that, because I just don't think they have the pulse on the team. And I think that's one of the things that's really changed through the years. And everyone has a platform now with YouTube and some of the things that are available. And I think we do get better coverage now than we ever got before, where you get, these small blurts. And it's interesting just listening to what people say. Colin Cowherd said he hated the draft. Well, CBS had this as an A+ draft. So it's kind of like, everyone kind of has their own feel on it. But the thing is these national media people, they know they want to slight Brock Purdy because that gets clicks. 49er fans get passionate about protecting their guy, Brock Purdy, so they know that's what's going to happen. And the 49ers have a huge fan base, and they need to engage that fan base. And the way that they do it is by saying negative things about the team, and they know that that's going to turn into clicks. But all it does is make them wrong. And I think if people started keeping a scorecard on how often these guys are wrong, like James Jones and with Colin Cowherd, they would stop listening. So I have a friend that sends me national media, stuff. The used to be Skip Bayless and Colin Cowherd, and I could care less. I do not care about their opinions. To me, they're way wrong all the time, and they don't have the pulse of the 49ers team.
Yeah, and how do you say I don't like the last two drafts? Well, this draft class hasn't played a down yet, so you can't say you don't like them. Last year's draft class was really good. And now, will they be good this year? Who knows? I tend to think that they will, but they played a lot as rookies, and so I like that one. But yeah, it just I don't like the. I can remember back when ESPN just reported news and everybody loved ESPN, but now it just feels like nobody does. And this is he's with Fox Sports, but obviously that's what we're talking about. All right. Thanks, everybody, for backing me up in my anti-Colin Cowherd. David said Cowherd and Florio are wrong a lot. JD says, yeah, but what's the chance the Niners or Brock or Kyle are as bad as last year? Rob said Cowherd still mad Trey Lance dated his daughter. Yeah, it is definitely interesting. All right, let's talk about the schedule because we haven't met since then. So I want to get your thoughts. Let me just run through some things real quick. They have a positive rest advantage, which everybody's heard about. Guy Haberman said he's got the 49ers +9 on rest advantage. Also finishing with 8 of their 10 opponents coming off of a road game. So that's another good thing. Not playing any teams coming off a bye, which we mentioned. They have 4 Eastern time zone games. Now, only 3 are early starts. Tampa, which is on the East Coast, of course. The Giants, New York, obviously been out there. Cleveland, not really East Coast, but it is in the Eastern time zone. So those are all early starts in the Eastern time zone. The Colts game is the 4th Eastern time zone, but that's on a Monday night. 2 other early starts are on Central time zone. That's New Orleans and Houston. Will they? The question for me is will they return to Santa Clara between games in Houston and New York? Last year they returned. The previous years they went to West Virginia. Years ago they would go somewhere in Ohio, Youngstown, I think. They have 5 primetime games. 1 Thursday night game against the Rams, which I don't mind, only 1 Thursday night game because I hate putting that on the team. They play the Falcons on Sunday night, which I think is going to be a tough one. The Panthers on Monday night, which they should win if they were asleep. The Colts on Monday night, which who knows? The Colts are bipolar. Like one week they're good and the next week they're not. They play the Bears on Sunday night. I think that one runs the risk of being flexed out if the Bears aren't any good. But then the final game of the season, the 49ers play the Seahawks. If both teams are making a playoff push, they could be flexed in on that one. Week 14 is their bye. That's late. Want to get your thoughts on that because I think that could be good for them when they're coming down the stretch, because in 2023, down the stretch, especially after that Christmas game against the Ravens, they really didn't play well down the stretch and then almost lost to Green Bay and Detroit in the postseason. So it would be great if they could be rested and healed up some and have some momentum late in the season. And this will help. 6 of their last 7 opponents had losing records in 2024. So what are your thoughts on the schedule and anything that jumped out to you? Especially want to know what you think about that late bye.
Yeah, I think that there's some interesting things. The first thing that jumped off to me when I was going through it was the 10 o'clock games. And you brought it up, 3 on the Eastern time zone, 2 in the Central time zone. But the 49ers before, and a lot of West Coast teams struggled in those times. Now, that's not the case for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. They are 15-12 in road games that are played in that early window, and 20-19 in all road games during Kyle Shanahan's career. So that'll give you kind of an idea of the difference in the timing of it. So that's a good thing for the 49ers. They win when they play in those early windows. And I think we've seen that kind of shift since Jim Harbaugh, some of the attention that people paid to the internal clock and how things are handled. And I do believe the 49ers are probably going to come home from Texas before they go to New York. That's a short trip. The time zone, you'll actually gain the hour by coming home. So I think that makes sense for them to come home. I think last year there was the Thanksgiving, so that kind of played into it. Now, when it comes to the bye, I do think that it's very late, considering where you'd normally like your bye around week 9 or 10, where the 49ers have had it consistently over the last few years. That's the optimal time, halfway through the year, because then you can get a break. I will say having the mini bye after the week 5 Rams game could help the 49ers be able to make it to week 14. I think it's going to be concerning probably between week 11 and to week 14 to see how that team plays in that time. But if they can hold on, you're right. It sets up nice for that playoff push, because then you can get 4 games after the bye, followed by, now everyone's talking about how well the 49ers schedule sets up. If they can get themselves into a situation where they can win the division and maybe even because of some tough games in the NFC, be able to get a home field advantage, they could go bye, four games, bye, and then a playoff run where they only have to win 2 to get to the Super Bowl. That would set up very nice for them. That's a lot to ask, though, for a team that's got a lot of rookies and a lot of guys they're going to have to grow into this football team. But you can see that there is a pathway to some really great success through this schedule. You brought up the fact that, it's the one of the worst schedules since 2015 as far as win percentage of the opponents. And also, they're playing a lot of teams that haven't been in the playoffs recently. I think it's like their last 7 opponents missed the playoffs last year. So that's huge for them. They have an opportunity to close it down the stretch and get a really good seed going into the playoffs. And I think that could be huge for them.
Let's see here. David said, like having a late bye week. Kenny 49ers said, when we lost to the Ravens and Brock Purdy was MVP in the MVP talks, we had 7 days less rest. That's hard to say, than the Ravens. I remember that. That was they definitely were up against it. Monkey Boy 12 says, hardest stretch of the schedule looks to be 5 through 10, less the Giants. Just gotta make it through that and stay healthy. We have a chance. So 5 through 10 is the Rams, the Bucks, the Falcons, the Texans, Giants, and then the Rams again. So that's a good call, Monkey Boy. Let's see here. David says that last game versus Seattle will be just like 2019, Greenlaw tackle at the goal line. All right, so who's going to make the tackle this time? Uncle Salty said, with little drama and getting Kittle and Brock signed, the Niners should be headed in a positive direction for the whole offseason program. So, that's Keys said, with Brock's contract done and our schedule being so easy, we need to add some good free agents to have depth. So, I think things are looking good for the 49ers. I want to real quick run through the schedule. Do you want to do who has the advantage, or do you want to do who wins?
Yeah, I think we should do like who has the advantage.
All right.
I think that's the best way to go. Picking winners is always interesting when you're
Yeah.
at this time of the year.
Mhm.
But I'll do it either way. I don't mind picking a winner too. I'm not crazy either way. I'll do it either way.
Yeah, I did my own quick little video the other day, and I did who has the advantage, just because I normally at this point don't like making those predictions either. So, all right, week 1 is in Seattle. The 49ers have been playing better. There was a time they couldn't win in Seattle. Lately, they have been playing. I'm going to say this is advantage 49ers because it's Sam Darnold's first game with the Seahawks.
I think that you're right because I think that there's so much changeover with the Seahawks offense that I think the offense is it's gonna be one of those situations where the Seahawks defense is gonna be good and the Seahawks offense is gonna struggle. And for the 49ers, it's gonna be a 49ers offense defense is gonna have to figure it out. And I think it's easier, and I just know this from experience coaching, for a defense to figure it out than an offense. There's a lot more moving parts. So I'm going to give advantage 49ers early as the Seahawks try to figure out that offense. I think that offense is going to be a lot better when they get to week 18.
Okay, week 2 is in New Orleans against the Saints. I'm going to give the 49ers the advantage because I don't even know who's going to be the Saints quarterback in that game.
Yeah, that's the problem. If it's Spencer Rattler, yeah, I mean, minus them signing Aaron Rodgers, and even then, who's going to block? I think they have some real concerns about their offensive line. I'm going to advantage 49ers as well. I think even if you lost in Seattle, you're not starting the season 0-2. You're beating the New Orleans Saints.
Week 3, they come home for the season home opener against the Arizona Cardinals, who I think had a good draft, had a good offseason. I think they're going to be improved, but I still think the 49ers are going to be better. I give them the advantage in this game.
I do as well. It's at home. I think that this is a good situation for the 49ers. And I think that they have an advantage early. It's always interesting with Arizona because I feel like they play better earlier in the season than they do late, and they kind of tail off. But I do think the 49ers can get a win here. I think it would be very important. I think it's going to take a little bit for some of the new pieces for the Arizona Cardinals to get acclimated. But I do like their team. I think these games are going to be a lot tougher against Arizona this season.
Yeah, I saw a Cardinals, somebody who covers the Cardinals, kind of putting the 49ers down. And I just think, first off, they wouldn't have won that last game if Brock Purdy was playing, and then Jawan Jennings got kicked out. That first game that they played, though, was kind of like that first Rams game where the 49ers had them and just got sloppy and let them come back in and win it in the end. So, but the Cardinals, I do think, are going to be better. Week 4 at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't expect them to do much. So I'd say advantage 49ers.
Yeah. Duval. No, it's not happening. 49ers. Yeah. Advantage 49ers.
Week 5. This is the tough one on the road against the LA Rams. I realize it's Levi's South and the 49ers fans will probably outnumber the Rams fans, but I'm going to go advantage Rams. I think they're going to be really good this year. And since it's in LA, I'm going to give the Rams the edge here.
Yeah, that's why it's hard to pick games. I think it is advantage Rams, but is Matthew Stafford going to be healthy? I mean, you just don't know about Matthew Stafford's health. We've seen him have issues early in the season. If he's playing, it's at home on a short week. I do think it's advantage Rams. So that one will be more interesting, but that's why there's a lot of things that play out in these games is week to week, what's happening health-wise, and Matthew Stafford's going to be a big part of it. I think this is, like you said, probably advantage Rams. I still think it's close because the 49ers travel so well, the fans, but I do think it's advantage Rams as well.
Yeah, that quarterback and that receiving core might be a little scary this season. Week 6 is in Tampa against the Bucs, so this is an early start. I think Tampa is going to be pretty good. If I was picking it right now, I would pick the 49ers to win it, but I'm going to say advantage Tampa.
I'm going to give advantage 49ers. They're having an offensive coordinator change there. So I think that's going to play into it a little bit, but also we've just seen the 49ers handle Tampa Bay for the last 3 years. And so I think that they're a little bit in Baker's head. I think that they do enough to win. So I think that there's an advantage there. The 49ers just have an advantage mentally right now over Tampa Bay. But if you told me when we got closer to this game and Tampa was playing really well and the advantage would flip to them, that wouldn't shock me. I think this one's pretty close. But I'm going to go advantage 49ers because of recent success, even last year.
This is going to be an interesting one here. Sunday night at Levi's Stadium, I almost said in Candlestick, against the Atlanta Falcons, Week 7. I think the Falcons are going to be good. I think they may be a playoff team this year. I'm still going to go advantage 49ers, but I'm probably going to be a little more nervous about that game than I normally would be against playing the Falcons.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to the Falcons, what's their pass rush going to look like? They did go get Jalen Walker. They went and got, Pierce Jr. in the draft. They are adding players there, but they never figured it out last year. And if they can't generate a pass rush, well, that's going to be, a good time for Brock Purdy. I don't think Atlanta is ready and up to the task coming to San Francisco. I'm going to advantage 49ers. You're at home in prime time. This is where the 49ers sit. I think this is a good situation for them. They should be very comfortable on defense by that time. And I just don't know if they have enough weapons in Atlanta and enough pass rush. Advantage 49ers.
Week 8 is in Houston against DeMeco Ryans and the Texans. It's going to be I think that'll be a good one. I'm still going to go advantage 49ers just because I think that they're going to be better than Houston, but the Texans are going to be a tough out.
Yeah, I don't think this one is a clear cut either way. I think this one is going to be tough. I think DeMeco, he always schemes up very well, but I am going to give advantage 49ers because when it comes to Kyle Shanahan playing against coaches that played for or that coach with him, he's usually very successful. I know Mike McDaniel got him last year with Miami. That's a different situation. He's a lot like Belichick in that manner. He wins against his former coaches. So I give advantage 49ers because of the Shanahan factor. And I think there's question marks about Houston. I think there's some interesting things going on there with that roster.
Week 9 on the road against the New York Giants. That should be a heavily favored 49ers game. I give the Niners the advantage in that one.
Yeah, advantage 49ers. I can't take them serious with Russell Wilson, probably being the starting quarterback. I get it. Russ had success against the 49ers in the past. This is not the same Russell Wilson. So I think the advantage 49ers for sure.
Week 10, they host the LA Rams. I gave the Rams the advantage earlier in the season. I'm giving the 49ers the advantage in this one. I'm
doing the same thing. They're at home. I think it gives advantage to the 49ers. I do think these games between them and the Rams are going to be razor close. I love the Rams additions, on the defensive line over the last couple of years. I think they still have question marks about linebacker. That could come back to bite them in the butt a little bit, especially if Christian McCaffrey's rolling at the time. So advantage 49ers.
The next week, they go on the road to Arizona to play the Cardinals. And I'm tempted to give the Cardinals the advantage because I do think that they're going to be much improved. But I can't. I just can't. I'm going to give the 49ers the advantage.
Yeah, I think if the at Arizona game would have been earlier than week 11, I would have gave an advantage to Arizona because they play better in the beginning of the year and at home. But this is later in the year. This is usually the time they tail off. Let's see if something changes. They got a lot of young players, so maybe they'll be playing a lot better at the time. But I just don't trust Kyler Murray. I'm going to advantage 49er. Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall going to their home state. I think Brock's going to show up and show out. So I'm going to advantage 49ers.
Yeah, Kyler Murray went off on the 49ers last year, but there was a different defensive coordinator then. So I think that this could go differently. Week 12 on Monday night. Not sure how the Carolina Panthers got a Monday night gig, but hey, everybody deserves at least one. This is easily advantage 49ers.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to get, out of Bryce Young. And I don't think that they've done enough to improve that defense. I think that defense is still, in shambles. And so they're going to have to figure some things out. I think the 49ers have a real advantage. I think this is also a game that might get flexed out. Carolina's got to hold up their end of the bargain for this to be on primetime. And I think I just have a feeling that they might be competitive in games, but I don't think they're going to be a competitive team for the whole season. It's going to be hit and miss. So, yeah, advantage 49ers.
When did they start flexing Monday night games?
They can start flexing them. I think it's like week
No,
9 or something.
when did they? Because
they just announced that they could do it now this year. This is the
okay.
first year
Wow.
it has become they're able to flex Monday Night Football games.
Wow, I totally missed that. Wow, dang, I didn't realize that. Crap. Yeah, you may be right. Stinking Carolina. That is kind of interesting because I think I heard Adam Schefter the other day say the NFL really seems, because he was kind of a little bit down on the 49ers. They lost a lot more talent than people think they did. But he said the NFL seems high on the 49ers because they gave them 5 primetime games. Now knowing that, is the NFL really that high on them because they've given them 2 Monday nights and a Sunday night that they could potentially flex out? So, dang, now that gives me something to worry about. But anyway, so week 13. This one is the one when I did it by myself. I said advantage 49ers. This is in Cleveland. You never know. November 30th, you never know what the weather is going to be like in Cleveland. If it's rainy, I'm going to say advantage Cleveland, but we don't know who they're, because they have like 12 quarterbacks and we don't know which one's going to be playing that week. I think that when I did this by myself, I said advantage 49ers just because I think Cleveland's a mess. But I could easily be swayed to go the opposite direction just because who's that defensive coordinator in
Jim
Cleveland?
Schwartz.
Yeah, and Kyle has a hard time beating him for some reason. I don't know. I could go either way. Where are you at on this one?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go advantage Cleveland. And this doesn't make any sense. And it didn't make any sense in 2023 when they lost. Yeah. They had no quarterback in that game. They played backups. But for whatever reason, the 49ers struggle to play in the Northeast like that. They just do. And when they are on the road in Cleveland against Jim Schwartz, I think it's a possibility they could lose. And I hope that's not the case. Right now I'm going with advantage Cleveland. I hope the 49ers come in there and win, but I do think it's going to be a tough game no matter what. For whatever reason, you talk Minnesota, you talk Detroit, Cleveland, like those games are tough for the 49ers if you just look at the records throughout the years. And it didn't matter if it was Walsh or Seifert or Mariucci or, Harbaugh or Shanahan. Those were tough games. So I just think that this one I'm going to give, the advantage to Cleveland. But I do think the 49ers could win if they execute and play up to the level they're capable, because they're a better team than Cleveland in every capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just seeing this comment from Uncle Salty. Can't believe Grant Cohn called the Giants a threat in that game. Did he actually say that? Because that's insane. I mean, what was his reasoning? Because it's early start on the East Coast. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear why he said that. Moving on, week 14 is the bye. Week 15 at home against the Titans. That I definitely think advantage 49ers.
Yeah, I think the 49ers got a distinct advantage. Cam Ward will be coming to the, towards the tail end of his rookie season, but he's not set up for success there. They've got a rebuild that's going to take a couple of years. They lost a lot of talent during the offseason. This is advantage 49ers in a big way at home.
Week 16, they go to Indy to play the Colts on Monday night. We talked about this earlier, that you just don't know what you're going to get from the Colts, but I'm going to go advantage 49ers.
I am too. No quarterback situation. Unlike Cleveland, the 49ers don't struggle to play, at Indianapolis. It's in a dome. You don't have to worry about things like that. I think that their quarterback situation, Anthony Richardson hasn't proven that he can be consistent throwing the football. There's question marks, all over this quarterback room. Is it going to be Danny Dimes? I don't know. I'm not fearful of either one of those quarterbacks for the 49ers. Gus Bradley knows this team inside and out. I think that gives another distinct advantage to the 49ers.
They play the Chicago Bears at home on Sunday, December 28th. I'm going to give the 49ers, I like what the Bears are doing, but I'm going to give the 49ers the advantage.
Yeah, the Bears one's interesting because I think that, they're putting prime time because they think the Bears are going to be in the mix at the end of the year. And Caleb Williams is so fun, but I do believe the 49ers are going to be able to overcome. I think they're going to be healthy coming off the bye, and I think they're going to be steamrolling. So I'm going to give advantage 49ers against Chicago at home. If this was in Chicago, I would give advantage to Chicago, but it's at San Francisco. I'm going advantage 49ers.
Last game of the season is against the Seattle Seahawks in Santa Clara. We don't know when yet. I'm going to give the 49ers the advantage and say they sweep the Seahawks in 2025.
Yeah, I think if this game is necessary for the 49ers to win, I think that they will win this game. I think that when it comes to, especially if it's a big moment, we haven't seen Sam Darnold show up in big moments and make big plays in big games. And if this is for the division or this is for them to get to the playoffs, he's got to prove that he can do it. We already know that Brock Purdy can do that. So I'm going to give the advantage to the quarterback that I know can make the plays down the stretch, and the team that I feel the most comfortable with, the coordinators and everything else. So I'm going advantage 49ers at home against Seattle. So a lot of advantages for the 49ers as we went through this schedule.
Yeah, and as Lou mentioned, injuries are a critical part, and so if they can stay relatively healthy, then I think they can have a really good season. If they don't, like last season, I think that we could be looking at another bad season. But I do think that because of the lack of depth, things are going to be a little bit thinner, as far as the margin for error and the margin for injury this season. But let's hope that some of these young guys step up. Great stuff. Ant, anything else you want to add before we take off?
No, I'm just, I love that the Niners got some positive momentum. And that's one thing that I loved about the Brock Purdy and the George Kittle deal and everyone showing up to OTAs. This has now put a positive momentum pushing forward. And now I'm excited for OTAs, and I'm excited to see what they do, with the rest of the offseason, because I do think that they righted the wrongs that have happened the last couple of years with some of the unrest and some of the question marks surrounding certain players. None of that. Even with Fred Warner, we want a new contract. Guess what? Fred's there every day. He said, hey, we'll get to the contract when we get there. Phenomenal the way that they're handling. I love the leadership. I love the way the front office is approaching getting these guys into a contract, and it's caused positive 49ers momentum that can build into a really good schedule that we just went over. That's favorable. That's good news for the 49ers, and hopefully there's a different vibe when we get to training camp and everyone's on board and everyone's working together. I love this for the 49ers.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun season. Looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, especially for those in the chat. We appreciate your interaction and talking with us. And for those that are just at home listening or watching, whatever, thank you for joining us as well. Please make sure you take a minute to subscribe to 49ers Cutback and 49ers Camelot. That helps us out, and we would really appreciate it. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week.